As I said in the printed lesson, you need your textbook this week, okay? Make sure you have your textbook with you before you start to watch this video. If you don't have your textbook with you right now, stop the video, go get your textbook, and then restart the video when you have your textbook, because it'll just mean a whole lot more to you if you have your textbook with you, okay? We want to talk about your list of works cited for your research paper. This is almost the same thing as what you might have called a bibliography in the past. There are subtle differences. A bibliography is a list of everything that you went to find out about your topic. You may have done some stuff in general background reading and not taken any specific ideas from it. So, there may be things that just kind of gave you the big picture, and you're not using any specific ideas from there in your research paper. Well, those things would go in your bibliography. But what we're creating is a list of works cited. And the list of works cited only is the materials that you actually took information from, okay? Now, those might be books, they might be magazines, most likely many of them are internet articles, they might be personal interviews, they might be a tweet, okay? It might be something out of a journal, it might be something from a pamphlet, it could be all sorts of things, but it's any place that you took information from which you're using in your research paper. Now, I'm going to say this again, and I'll say it again later on in this video, and I'm sure I'll say it again a couple of times next week. Every piece of information that you took from someplace else that goes into your research paper, even if you put it entirely in your own words, you still took it from someplace else, and so you have to give that person credit for it. And I'll show you how to give that credit for specific ideas in our next video. But in this video, what we're doing is talking about how you line up your list of works cited. And again, that's each place that you took information from. Just a general list, not specific places, just a general list of every place you took information from that you are actually using in your paper. And again, we're not just talking about direct quotes, okay? We're talking about things that you may have rewritten entirely in your own words to go into your paper. That's still information you took from someplace else, so you have to give them credit for it. So you're writing a research paper. Almost everything in your research paper comes from someplace else, almost everything. And so most of the ideas in your research paper you will have to be giving credit to an author for, okay? Most of the ideas. You may have gotten a few things just because you knew some stuff beforehand, okay? And that's all right, but that should be a very small part of your paper because, again, this is a research paper. It's based on the research you have done to build it and create it, okay? So how do we create a works cited? Okay. Well, a couple of things that I want to make very clear to you. In your textbook, and I told you needed your textbook for this, starting on page 469 and going all the way to page 512, there is a sample of absolutely everything that you might take information from, okay? Like on 469, there's showing you how to set up the information from a single author, 2 authors, 3 or more authors, and that's generally for a book kind of thing. And then they give you general guidelines on 470, 471. Once you get over to 472, it gives you lots more information. Okay, and they go into all sorts of different kinds of references that you may have taken. 2 or more works by the same author, author with an editor or translator, article in a journal. Let's see. Article in a magazine. Article in a newspaper. Editorial. An unsigned article. An article without an author. A letter to the editor. A film review. A performance review. A personal interview. A letter. Anything you could possibly need. They show you how to do between pages 469 and 512. So don't try to memorize that stuff. It's not worth it. Okay? For each thing you're going to put in your list of works cited, look at the book and find the specific thing that you need, because the book is very clear on it. Now, when we started this whole process back in the beginning, and I had you take what we called bibliography cards, I told you that if you have an author, you put the author's last name first and then his first name. Okay. Well, that's how things go in your list of works cited. The author's last name goes first and then his first name. And if you have more than one author, it shows you how to do that in the book. And if you have 3 or more authors, it shows you how to do that in the book. I don't want to try to detail this out because it's really confusing. It's much better if you just use the book and do it the way. Now, we're doing this with MLA style, and MLA is different from APA. So if you're doing a research paper for psychology, you're probably using APA. For an English paper, a humanities paper of any kind, we use MLA, which means Modern Language Association, okay? So make sure that you're using MLA, and I would advise you to be jotting down notes as you're watching this video so that, again, you know those pages are 469 through 512. In fact, on 512, they even have how you put something down for a Facebook post, okay? That's kind of cool. And again, a tweet, a text message. It shows you how to do something from a text message. So it shows you how to do almost everything you might want to come across, you might want to do. So make yourself familiar with those in the sense of look up what you want, okay? But keep in mind that if you have an author, it starts with the author's last name, comma, first name, period, okay? If there's more than one author, when you get to the second author's first name goes first, and then that author's last name. You might think that's confusing. Let me tell you why. The items in your works of list cited go in alphabetical order by the first thing in the entry. Okay? So if you have an author for everybody, then it goes in alphabetical order by the author's last names. If you have an author for some, and some you don't have an author for, but you have a title, then you use the title to alphabetize it. Okay? So you might have one by an author that starts with a B, and then the next one doesn't have an author and it starts with a D. It's the title of the work. Then fine, that'll come next in the list. You intermix those. You put the whole thing in alphabetical order by the first thing in the entry. That's why it's important that you look carefully at these pages. Okay? So, again, you know what those pages are. Now, in your book, flip over to page 524 and 525. Okay? On those pages, there is a sample works cited. Make yourself familiar with what these pages look like. Okay? Now, on the sample works cited page, notice on the top of the list, centered on the page, is the words works cited. That's how you start off a works cited page. And again, it's works cited. Not everything you used, only things that you cited, so things that you actually took information from and used in your paper, even if you completely rewrote it, okay? That's what works cited is. Then when you look at the works cited list, you'll notice that it's all in alphabetical order. The first one is by a Sarah Conley, so it's in alphabetical order by C. The next one, the facts on junk food, well, the doesn't count as a word. Facts is what counts as the word. Okay, so it's alphabetized by facts. Okay, then we have an author, Laureen Goodwin, another author. I think all the rest of them. No, over on the next page, after David Resnick, there's United States Department of Agriculture. So that's it. That's alphabetized by United States, and then there's United States Department of Health. Okay, so that's alphabetized. First one is alphabetized by United States Department of, and then the next word starts with an A, agriculture. So that one is going to come before United States Department of Health, because agriculture comes before health. And then the third one is United States Department of Transportation. So we have AHT. So, you may have to go that far into a title before you figure out. But again, it's alphabetized by the first word, and if you need to go further than that, then that's the way you do it. Now, an important thing and something that students frequently mess up on is that in a works cited, we use something called reverse indentation. Let me hold my book up close so you can get a good look at this. I know you have your book, but normally when you set up any kind of paragraphing, you indent the first line and each succeeding line comes to the margin. In works cited, we use reverse indentation, okay? The first line in each entry, see, comes over to the margin, and each succeeding line in that entry is indented, okay? So we're reversing what we normally do for indentation. The first line in each entry comes all the way to the margin. Each succeeding line is indented 5 spaces. So we have margin, then an indent, margin, then all of these lines, because it's a long title, indented, then a new entry. So we're out to the margin, and then the next second line in it is indented. Then we have a new entry, and that's out at the margin, and we have 3 more then that are indented. Okay, so that's what it should look like. The first line in each entry starts at the margin. Each succeeding line in that entry is indented 5 spaces. Okay, so we've talked about 2 important things so far. The word works cited centered in the top of the page. Okay, and then the fact that we use this reverse indentation. I'm sorry, we've talked about 3 things. The word is works cited. We've talked about alphabetical order by the first word in the entry, and the doesn't count as a word. And then we've talked about this reverse indentation, okay? This is the format you have to use. I don't create the format, okay? The Modern Language Association creates the format. And the reason they do is because they want that name to jump out at you. And when we talk about in-text referencing next week, you'll understand better why that comes first. This helps the reader find exactly where your information comes from. So again, alphabetical order and this reverse indentation, okay? Now, something else. Notice that this is double spaced all the way through, the same way your text is. So, you're skipping a line in between each one. You're double spacing. That's what double spacing means. And your text will be double spaced. The whole paper that you write will be double spaced. This is double spaced the same way. So if you look at the line that starts out with Conley, Sarah, and then the line that starts out with York Times, you can see there is a line skipped in between. That's double spacing. In other words, you're doing it on every other line, okay? And then notice between the first entry and the second entry, it's spaced the exact same way as within the entry. So the second one is long. You can really get a better look at the way the spacing is there. You're skipping a line in between each line, but then you skip the exact same amount when you go down to the next entry, okay? So we double space all the way through, okay? So 4 key things in works cited. The word works cited, centered on the top. The whole thing goes in alphabetical order by the first word in the entry, which is going to be, most of the time, the author's last name. If you don't have an author, it's going to be the title. If you don't have an author or a title, it's just a website. Then it's going to be by the website, okay? So you alphabetize that way. We use reverse indentation, as you see on page 524 and 525. We double space all the way through, as you see on 524 and 525. Okay, those are key things to set up a works cited. Okay, those are the important things. And what's the other thing? Yeah, there's one other thing I wanted to say, and now it's flown. So if I think of it, I'll put it in the lesson. But this is the way your works cited should look, okay? You're supposed to have a minimum of 6 items in your works cited. We told you that from the beginning. You need to take information from at least 6 different sources to put in your paper. You may have used 15 different sources. That's okay. But you need at least 6 that you took information from and used in your paper, okay? So I am going to want you to set up your works cited as part of your assignment for this week, which will be due on Tuesday the 10th, okay? So, because that way, if you don't understand how to do it, we'll show you how. Here's the other thing I want to tell you. You do not number the items in your works cited. That was the other thing. Notice there's no 1 before the first one, 2 before the second one, 3 before the third one. No numbering in your works cited. I knew it would come back to me. Okay, so again, the word works cited at the top, the whole thing in alphabetical order by the first word in the entry, which might be the author, might be the title, might be a website, whatever it is, whatever the format shows you on pages 469 to 512. You double space all the way through the same way this is set up. You don't number anything, okay? You use this reverse indentation, okay? So those are the 5 key things in a works cited. And again, I want to see your works cited set up just like this as part of what you're going to get for the assignment in this week's lesson, okay? Questions, you know where to email me, you know where to call me, you know where to text me. So have a good week, and we'll see you soon.